real quickly the governor's order, and then we will take attendance for tonight. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to view this can do so the links that were provided. Okay, so we will now take the roll. Councilor LaPlante.
Present.
Councilor Estela Reyes.
Present.
Councilor Giovanni Rodriguez.
Present.
And the chair is present as well. Great, we have a full team on. All right, so before we get to tabled business, I know that we have minutes from our last meeting. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve those minutes?
Can you repeat it again? I'm sorry. I don't know what I looked.
Yes. So there are meetings. The last time we met was September 17th. And there are minutes from that meeting that should have been in the email that Teresa sent out. So just want to see if there's
make a motion to accept.
Second.
All right. So there's a motion. It was seconded by Councilor Reyes. Let's see who was in favor. Councilor LaPlante.
Yes.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez.
I vote present. I wasn't here.
The chair votes in affirmative. Okay. So is there a motion to take out item 2620 from table matters?
One more.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion's been second. Councilor LaPlante.
Yes.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Yes.
Chair votes in affirmative as well. All right, so we are now at dealing with our main item that we've been working on for months. Before I give the floor to our guest tonight, I just want to say that some of the to-do items for today, I know that some of the things we were working on in the last meeting, we asked for one of the city attorneys to be here to speak, and the third city attorney has been working on this topic for a while. She's done a lot of research. She was due to give birth in December, and she went in yesterday to deliver a baby. So obviously that's more important than being at tonight's meeting. So unfortunately she wasn't able to make it today, but we do have our final, hopefully our final charter meeting is next Thursday, and City Attorney Ruano will be ready to speak to us and will be prepared with the other city attorney's research on that. So just wanted to give that point, because I know that we've been working very hard on that. As far as, I think one of the things that I want to make sure that we're doing before tomorrow's meeting is to make sure that we're going through all of the minutes. What I'm going to do is by Monday, I am going
Mr. Chairman, we can't hear you. I'm sure what you said was brilliant, though, but we just can't hear it. Who's the vice chair of this committee? Do we know? I don't even know who that is.
I don't know.
All right, so you guys can hear me now?
Now
Yeah.
we can hear.
Yes, we can.
Give me 1 second. It looks like my internet's not doing too well.
You entered no digits. Please re-enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign.
AOL?
For the vice chair, if anything, Mark.
All right, so I'm not sure.
To enable audio controls, please enter your audio.
Not sure where I left off, but essentially, so I'm going to be sending out an email to everybody by Monday with the charter as with all the changes that we've made. I'm also going to make sure that we're including all the minutes there. And I would like for you is essentially look over from minutes and what I'm presenting to make sure that it goes aligned with some of the decisions that we have been making. Does that make sense?
It sounds like a plan, yes.
Okay. All right. Perfect. And next up, I want to give my thanks to Chairman Petrakis, Chair of the Board of Registrars, that is here tonight to speak on, essentially his experience in the Board of Registrars. Mr. Chairman, so one of the points of discussion that we've been having is we've been talking about, recall petitions, about referenda items, and we just wanted to, I'm sure that the other committee members have questions around this, but we were wondering if you could speak to, anything that you think would be of value for us to know as we are looking through the charter and thinking about making changes to it.
Now, this is in respect to, because it's kind of a broad topic. Can you narrow it down for me as to what you're looking at?
Sure. So the committee as a whole is looking at the entire charter. But one of the points of discussions that we were having is there's a section of the charter that talks about referenda items and also talks about recall petitions. And we in our last meeting in September, we had a lot of conversations around, even things as, simple as, is the threshold too high or is the threshold, too low? We wanted to hear more from your perspective as to your experience, when you guys were dealing with those, what the experience was, and that might help inform us make a more informed decisions as to potential amendments. So,
Okay.
So I guess that Mr. Vice Chair, you can take over. I mean,
I'm not even sure who's the
All right.
vice chair.
So,
Go ahead, Mr. Petrakis.
Sorry.
Mr. Piano, I think makes a good point. What are the problems you were facing? And we're looking at the charter review to try to fix those problems. I think it's essential.
And
what we're trying to get down here.
and essentially we are talking about Section 9 of the charter, which refer to free petition initiative and referendum and recalls.
Right.
So, first of all, I'm going to ask your forgiveness. It's been a little while since we had the recall, and there might be a few items that I don't recall perfectly. So it was my first experience with such an event, and so I personally looked at it very carefully, trying to be impartial, right? So what I found, and again, this is my opinion, and I'm going to zoom out and then try to narrow down, is that in general, I feel that the system as it exists worked. We executed the process. We came to a conclusion, and and it represented, I believe, both the will of the voters when they elected the mayor and the will of the citizens when they pursued the recall. What that means with regards to, ratios and, thresholds, I will leave that to minds bigger than mine. I've primarily focused on, is this a process that is representing both sides appropriately? And are we, as a board, executing in an appropriate way? And I think we did, given that not all of the information was in one place, given that there wasn't a lot of precedent for us to fall back on and follow, and some mistakes were made, but the Superior Court quickly set us straight. We came out okay. So I guess I'll start with the first part of the process, which is the petition to recall, right? Where there's I guess you would say, a small threshold of people needed to come together and petition for the right to pursue a recall. In and of itself, I felt that worked. I want to give credit where it's due to the folks in the elections office. They did a lot of extra work pulling this thing off. It kind of surprised me. I'd say that literally any reason could justify recalling an elected official, but I guess that it has no bearing on whether or not it can be done. I mean, the reason could literally be no reason at all, and I found that to be very interesting. It caused some animosity, I think, in the city itself, because the people were confused by some of the wording of the document, and I don't know. I'm starting to ramble. I guess help me focus if you have any specific questions.
Councilor Plant.
Thank you. So, I mean, there were many challenges. There were core challenges. People were saying that you weren't doing the job right. They were looking at signatures. They were looking at the voting list. They were trying to match voting list voters, and there was all this just a noise of stuff. Yeah. So I think that's. I mean, I can't speak for the other counselors, but my sense, I like to know, how can we avoid that storm if we can? I mean, what is it about the functionality of this charter that provides for the storm to take place, and can we do anything to mitigate it?
Okay. All right. So,
and just to follow up with what Mr. LaPlante said, if you can, if I mind, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Councilor.
You can answer together because it's very similar. And if there is, during the process that you guys were going through during the recall petition, if there was any challenge on court in regard to this specific section of the charter that it wasn't clear, and that way we can fix it.
Well, I'm unable to quote the charter to you, so I don't know if I'll be much help in that area. So if you want to turn that around and maybe ask me about specific sections, but let's say with signatures, right? Because signatures was to put it nicely, it was a hot mess. And so what we learned was that a signature is essentially and this is from, previous case law, and that's what we went back into, like elections and recalls and challenges to signatures going back, in some instances, 40 years to find the specific precedent that applied to us. And again, the credit to the legal team and to the clerk for being able to dig this stuff up. But what we learned with regards to signatures is anything could be a signature, including printed text, so long as the individual vouches for it as their signature. And in the instance of the elections office, we have it on record. It was that was something else. That was something else. And we also learned that we can't reverse the decision of the elections office. So if they took someone off, if they disqualify the signature, we can't put it back on as a board. We can only hear challenges from either side to taking a signature off or leaving it on the list. And that's where the Superior Court turned us around, because we, in some of our initial decisions, added signatures that the elections office struck, and we didn't have the right to do so. Our duty was simply to hear arguments to remove or arguments against removing. And so that actually caught the attorneys for the recall and for the mayor by surprise also. So everybody was learning. Please.
And through you, Mr. Chairman, through the recall process, when you talked about the signatures, are you looking at the signatures with the voter registration list, and are you also matching the signatures that are on file?
So that work was done by the elections office, and they gave us a report essentially, and with their letters that they use to differentiate, why a particular signature was struck. And that worked well, and it helped us to, understand the process. But yes, to answer your question, we use the signatures on record. We did have the authority to subpoena if we felt that there was a need to do so. I think in some instances that was requested by council. But yes, it's the voter record, the signatures on file, and signatures change over time. Some of these records are old. And
yeah, so earlier you said that people are putting X's and typing something. How does that comport with the typing with a signature on file? How are you able
not typing, printing, right? So you can print your name, all right, and so long as it was done in your hand and recognizable as your mark, I believe that's what the actual law says, is a signature is a mark. It's your mark. So your mark could be printing your name. Your mark could be a symbol. Yeah, it's. I mean, they're. I imagine if we go into the registry and we go back far enough, we'll find properties purchased with an X, and it's good. As long as it's a witnessed mark and so recorded.
My next question is regarding the voter registration list. How much confidence are you on that list? It seems like our charter really relies on a voter registration list that is current, that is accurate, and we're looking at we didn't want to talk about percentages. We're going to have the attorney talking about percentages, but you're, I think, reliant on this list. A certain number has got to match before things are triggered. What's been your impression about this voter registration list that we have?
So there are several paths by which an individual gets on our voter registration list. Some of them are through the city, and I would say the majority of them are not. So, namely, the Department of Motor Vehicles. So we depend on other agencies to do their due diligence and properly add people to the voter registration list. When we go through this process, we aren't looking behind the list to say whether or not someone is validly on it. We presume that is the case. Are the lists up to date? In so much as the person that's on the list has kept us up to date, right? People move, they change address within the city, they change address within the state and leave the state. You know, I mean, they might go, to Europe, maintain their residence and vote. You know, they could be active duty. They could have retired to Florida to their second house and still have an address and vote in Massachusetts, all of these things. So in so much as they keep us up to date, it's up to date. But we're at the mercy of the input, as it is with any database, right?
Can I drill on that, Mr. Chairman? Which is
absolutely
Mr. Chairman, in your experience, did you find that that there's been some questions regarding this? And I mean, people, I'm presuming in your position, Mr. Petrakis, that you've got a list and you got people challenging names on a list, saying this is that person, this is not that person. I'm presuming this is happening. I'm presuming this is a regular course of your actions as on the board. So I'm just trying to get a sense from you: is that exaggerated, that there really is not much of a problem with our voter registrations, or this is a real issue? Because when you're talking about 10% of the voter registration list triggers something in our city, if you've got a hyperinflated voter registration list, 10% of that is a pretty big number. But if it's a smaller voter registration and it's accurate, 10% then becomes much more manageable and easier to get to. So if we've got a big number and people are dead on there, or people have moved out, or people aren't doing that stuff, and we've got all these big numbers, then focused on these initiative petitions and all the other stuff that Mr. Rodriguez was talking about earlier, that cuts right to it. And so I'm just trying to get a sense from you. What's your sense on the voter registration list?
So you're not wrong, right? Obviously, you're talking about a concept of resolution, right? So if you have a smaller, or maybe not, maybe we're talking about sample size, right? So if you have a large population, 10% is a significant figure, and like you said, a smaller population, it's obviously going to be a smaller number. All I can say is the voter registration list is established by state law. There are federal statutes that feed into it. It has multiple inputs. Not in the among them is people just walking into City Hall or the elections office and registering. We're at the mercy of the authority that establishes the voter registration lists and maintains it in law. So any change would have to happen, any streamlining of that list, which I think is what you're getting at, would have to happen at the state level and possibly federal.
And this is my last question. This is my last question to tie us in. What I don't know is this a small problem? If I want to call it a problem, I'm not sure I'm kind of leading you there. I don't mean to. Is this a small issue or a big issue? I realize the fact that you've got the list. It's what you've got. You got to work with it. That's it. It's beyond you. But my question to you is, I understand that, do you think that the list is accurate? Is it a bigger issue? Is this something that somebody beyond the people in this group today speaking on it needs to look at because there's a need, or is this like, something? It's not that big a deal. Yeah, there's some inadequacies, but it's not that, it's really small potatoes. I'm trying to get a sense of the scope.
Well, it's a big deal in so much as what it can do to and for the city, right? And to and for the voter, and with regards to elections and what we're here talking about today. But to change it, it's outside of our realm of influence. I mean, you would have to be, this is for Beacon Hill.
Just a point of information, very quick, or clarify something. So, are we talking about that the board that you're present, or you're talking about Section 9 of the charter that have to be changed at the state level?
I believe that what we're talking about is the changing the charter at the state level to affect how signatures, people remain on these voter registration lists. It's not something we can do. I don't believe it is, because every community would have to do it equally.
Hold on one second, because
Did you lose me?
Yes, hold on, because Pavel is trying to say something, I guess.
My apologies. So what I would say to that is, I think what Chairman Petrakis is speaking about is that as far as what a signature is or isn't, that is state law, not just state law, those are court decisions. But I mean, and this is potentially a question we can ask the city attorney. Once we go through the charter process, the charter is not official until the state house votes on it. So each charter is almost like it's like it's like a state law. It's a state law.
Affect the city of Lawrence only.
Yeah, and it would only affect Lawrence only.
Yeah.
Correct.
But for the charter, yes. But I think that when we talk about the voter registration list, I think that's statewide, and that would have to apply to.
That is correct.
Under Equal Protection Act, right? Every community, I believe, would have to be the same.
But I think that what Mr. LaPlante was referring to, it was more like how we as a city can have a better quality list for registered voters. And if we can clean it up better, that will affect or benefit the process in terms of signature.
I would ask the following questions, perhaps, of the city attorney. Can we have an audit? Right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Every January, everybody becomes inactive. And for people to become active, they have to participate in an activity that makes them active, right? They sign a petition, they become active. They register to vote, or they vote, they become active. There are several things that can make an inactive person active. If they stay inactive long enough, they fall off. Perhaps an audit can make sure that the people who should have fallen off have. An audit might tell us that we are adequately keeping up with deceased. An audit might tell us that persons who have moved away and have voted elsewhere should no longer be on our rolls as inactive. So if an audit is within our power, firstly, we should look into that. That might help. Another thing we can do is community outreach and say, hey, if you've moved, and please submit a change of address. And that helps that would help quite a bit. That would help the people who do data entry, right, maintain all of the roles accurately. Because the system's only as good as the data coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And data that comes in and just piles up is just as bad over time as no data at all. So maybe an audit's the way to go if we have the right to do so.
So, Mr. Chair,
And perhaps adding that right to the charter might be a good idea.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, Councilor Reyes?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Petrarchi, and thank you with us. So when you opened up early, you were saying that not all the information was placed beside all the challenges that you might have to face. What you refer about not all the information was in place.
So we had to, and when I say we, it's the city attorney and Clerk Maloney did a lot of homework, and they had to go back into previous court cases to find the precedent for us to make decisions regarding signatures. I think they went as far back as the McCarthy Senate race in the 60s, and one federal case. So, you know, I caution against writing a law book, I suppose, because, you know, we know where these precedent cases are now, and, you know, we've added ourselves to that list as well. And I know from speaking to the clerk that other communities are asking us how to do this stuff. And it basically, I think we just fall back on, look at the case law and look at the precedent and talk to your city attorney. You know, we have to be careful that we only wear the hat that we've been awarded. You know, the attorney's the attorney, and, you know, I'm the chair and you guys are the counselors.
Are there any other questions?
Mr. Chair, somehow I would like to have this section to be analyzed by the city attorney in collaboration with probably an outside vendor that can help us out, outside attorneys to help us out figure it out that whether or not this section might stay or change for the benefit of the people in general.
That'd be a great idea. Absolutely. Because I mean, what we finally craft has to ultimately be, you know, constitutional, and it can't disenfranchise anyone, right? So it has to remain accessible, and it has to make sense. And we don't want to make the process worse.
Exactly.
I mean, you know, the existing, most of the rules are ancient regarding, you know, recall petition. But it worked. So, you know, we got through it. We got from the beginning to the end, and we relied on case law, and it was, you know, in so much as a process like this is successful, it was.
So I would like to make that as a form of a motion, if there's a second.
Councilor Rodriguez, can you repeat the motion first?
I would like to send section 5 to the city attorney and to figure it out whether or not we should modify section 9 or keep it as is, based on previous experience and based on what actually worked for the people of the city of Lawrence.
Great. So what I would say, Councilor Rodriguez, is the city attorney is planning on being. There was a city attorney that should have been here tonight to talk about this particular item, but wasn't able to.
What I mean is probably send this specific section,
okay,
so for them not to hesitate in terms of using outside source or outside legal help to figure this out, not just a regular reading and to analyze it based on the actual need, because this has become a bigger a section of the city of Lawrence with every administration now. So if we learn something, so probably they should look into it. I know that they're probably going to be here and talk about in general. But I mean, looking at very deeply will be a lot more helpful. Probably
Okay.
need an outside source to analyze it as well.
Counselor, can you remind me of the section in the charter?
Section 9.
So the entire section?
The entire section is about recall.
Referenda. Yeah, no,
referendum.
that I think this just because like 9.1 is free petition. All right, so what we'll say is so the motion is to send a correspondence to the city attorney to look at section 9, the section 9 of the charter that discusses recall, and to give us her opinion based on Chairman Petrakis's comments tonight, and to seek outside counsel if need to,
Yes.
and to provide us with recommendations by the next charter meeting.
That sounds great.
Is there a second?
Second.
So that motion has been second. Councilor LaPlante,
Yes.
Councilor Reyes, noticed, Councilor Rodriguez,
Yes.
and the chair votes in affirmative. Are there any other questions regarding this topic that you would like to ask our guest? Councilor LaPlante?
Yeah, at some point, I want to appreciate and thank Mr. Petrakis for being here this evening. I know he's set up a couple of times where we didn't have a quorum, but all that. But I do appreciate his sticking with us.
Water under the bridge.
we do. I appreciate it. I think we all do. So thank you. At some point, and we don't need it tonight. My sense that I'm getting from you is you're staying in your lane. You're the board of registrars. You're staying in your lane. I also would like you to get out of your lane at some point. It's probably not going to be tonight, but where you're free to if you have an opinion about things that go beyond just your chairman of the board of registrars, as to this is a citizen who thinks we need to make these changes. I'm curious to hear what those are beyond the lane. So I don't know when the good time is for that. That may not be tonight, and maybe a different time is up to the chairman how he wants to address that. But that's I'm interested in that.
Chairman Petrakis, that's up to you.
Sure. So, I mean, I experienced this, some of the frustration from, so we had more than one recall going on at the same time, right? There were several that were started by other citizens, and they had a high degree of frustration because they weren't anywhere near as organized as the one recall that went the distance, let's say, right? They didn't know where to find the information that they needed to request petitions. They didn't know how to distribute their petitions to recall once they got them. They were just lost. And the elections office isn't supposed to be telling people how to recall elected officials, right? They can't do that. So one thing you guys could look at is possibly, in a very general sense, provide a roadmap or a flow chart for the citizen.
Yes.
We don't want to restrict their ability to seek relief, right? So that's the whole reason for the recall is when enough citizens come together and they say, you know what, this guy's got to go. Let's canvass the city and see if we can make that happen. That's something that we want to preserve. What I'd like to say, I'd like for us to look at is maybe these folks shouldn't have to hire, attorneys to be able to pursue this. It seems to me like it should be something that the common person can pick up, go to City Hall and say, you know what, I want to put together a petition. They go, they get their 150 signatures. All right, now I want to go and do my recall. And they have enough information to execute that and put it before the board of registrars without, spending thousands of dollars conservatively on counsel, right? That seems like a hurdle to the recall that is in itself not in writing anywhere, right? So, however we can look at that and not make it so easy that we're having elected officials knocked off like fleas on whimsy, then we should. And that's really the balance, right? Because people should have access, but at the same time, the voters who put them in place in the first place put them in place for a full term, not for 1/3 or 2/3. And so that's the balance you guys have to strike, and it's on you, really. I personally would just like to see more information available in one place for people seeking this relief.
Yeah. I mean, those are great comments, and I would say I don't think like something like that necessarily needs to be in a charter. I think that us as city council members, the city council can ask that of the city clerk, because I think what you're saying makes sense. I mean, not just for something as complicated as this. I mean, us going through the process, I think we are probably more learned on city ordinances and city laws than your regular resident. Even we had trouble figuring out what was what, that we had to request a city attorney to for some advice. So I can just imagine somebody that's seeking redress trying to follow this through. So
Exactly.
I think, you're correct. And I would also push back on anyone that would say that city office shouldn't be helping residents figure out how to do something like this. I would think that they should. Just like you would.
He doesn't say city offices. He said election division. So it should be a city official that actually help the people to guide them, but not necessarily the election.
So
One of
here,
you can help somebody navigate the city, but as to the clerk, who is actually the head of the elections office and the elections office themselves, they can't be taking sides.
Correct, but
impartial.
So what I would say, Mr. Chairman, is that well, I wouldn't want anyone taking sides. Just like if there was, for example, let's say somebody's running for office. Say someone was running, I'm a district counselor. I'm sorry.
It's just a perception of taking sides, even if they're not providing any aid, right? Any direction could give the perception.
Correct, but it's also, so what I would say, it's also sort of, in my view, it's also sort of part of the job. So, for example, if I was a city councilor, well, I am a city councilor. If I'm a district city councilor and somebody's running against me, and they go to the city clerk asking for advice as to, what they need to do to run for office, the city clerk advising them on that, I wouldn't see it as the city clerk picking sides. City clerk's doing this job. Now, if they take it a step further and start giving political strategy, I think now, that in itself is a whole different story. But providing, not just for this section, but anyone that is interested in doing a referenda or anything like that, providing very simple information, perhaps a chart, so that they can quickly kind of see like what the steps are, I think would be better for the citizen than just providing them this language that's written down that is complicated for us to understand, never mind somebody else. But I think that there are things that can be done without necessarily being perceived to be taking sides.
Sure. I mean, something could definitely be done, right? I can tell you what was done, and what was done is when someone came into the office of the clerk and say, "Hey, you know, I want to pursue this," that they received all of the statutes and all of the rules in basically a packet, and he said, you know, go ahead. I'm paraphrasing. I don't speak for clerk Maloney, but he gave them all of the rules. And instead of saying, you know, here's this paragraph in this statute and this paragraph in this case law, and you know, it's in the, and these, and you navigate them in this order. You know, he from my understanding, he said he couldn't do that. So what can you guys do? That's a great question. I mean, you might be able to streamline that for the public. But that comes with a note of caution, because if you omit something, that can boomerang back on the city later. And so, because it might be perceived as you're putting the totality of everything they need to know in that docket, right? And then when the elected official has his representation in front of the board and they whip something out that you don't have in that packet, then it goes boom. And so that's why I caution you guys against, you know, simplifying the law. Leave it the way it is. But at the same time, you know, that's why I say a flow chart, not a procedure. When you get specific, you get into the mud. And while I'm not an attorney, the little bit that I saw told me that less is more. When you know, trying to navigate this. But for the simple person, they just need a nudge. And there's nothing in the system to, you know, thankfully the clerk had everything on hand to give them, you know, but they had to figure out what was in there. And
Okay. Yeah. Well, are there any other questions? Okay. Well, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you so much, not just for being here tonight. I know that in the at least the last meeting that we were going to have, as Councilor Plant mentioned, you would have been there as well if we would have had a quorum. So I am grateful for your patience, and I thank you so much for your service. And I know that if we have any other questions, we'll be in contact. So thank you very much, and have a great night.
let's do this again. Let's not wait 10 years next time.
Love it.
All right.
All right. So I think.
Are you guys done with me?
Yes, unless there's you have any further comments.
I don't. Have a wonderful evening.
All right. You too, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. So I think it might be best for us to leave Section 9 until City Attorney is able to speak to us. But while is there anything that of note that we should mention to the City Attorney? That way, if you know, she can, if there's further research that she needs to do, that way when she comes here next Thursday, she's fully prepared to discuss this.
Mr. Chairman, I doubt the presence of a quorum. Can we just make sure that we have enough members available here?
Sure. All right. So quorum check. Well, Councilor Reyes, are you with us? Councilor Rodriguez, are you with us? I see a caller 3.
That's me. I lost connection. I couldn't, so I just called in.
Uh,
Councilor Reyes, you there?
yes,
Okay,
did you,
perfect. There's no vote. It's just a quorum check.
okay.
Thank you. All right, so let's move on to section 10. One second, let me put this up. All right, so we are section 10.1, charter changes. There's A and B. Is there anything in these two sections that you think we should change? Okay. Now we move on to section 10.2. You know what? It might be helpful if I read it. So read it out loud, so that way
Please.
everyone has time to read it as well. So 10.2, severability. The provisions of the charter are severable. If any provision of the charter is held invalid, the other provisions of the charter shall not be affected. One second. Shall not. I'm sorry. The provisions of the charter are severable. If any provisions of the charter is held invalid, the other provisions of the charter shall not be affected thereby. If the application of the charter and its provisions to other persons and circumstances shall not be affected thereby. Okay, that seems self-explanatory. I will say that I got a text message from Councilor Rodriguez. He says that his internet's out. It might be something. I'm in Tower Hill at the moment, so I'm experiencing like pretty low internet as well. So it might just be something that's going on in the area. Just FYI, if you guys see me come off, I'll still be on the phone. So, all right. So moving to 10.3, specific provisions to prevail. To the extent that any specific provisions of the charter shall conflict with any provision expressed in general terms, the specific provision shall prevail. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, perfect. All right. 10.4, rules and regulations. A copy of all rules and regulations adopted by city agencies shall be placed on file in the office of the city clerk and made available for review by any person who requests such information. No rule or regulations adopted by any city agency shall be effective until 10 days following the date it has been published in full in a local newspaper and placed on file in the office of the city clerk or the later of the two. So the one thing that I would like to make sure we put up note, Felix, if you could put in your notes that I had a question as to get all rules and regulations sort of a little bit more definition on what that means. Is that okay, Felix?
Which rules and regulations?
So section 10.4 says rules and regulations. A copy of all rules and regulations adopted by city agencies. So as I read it, it sounds like this isn't rules that are put forward by the city council. These are like procedural rules that city agencies, take. I'm trying to think of what one of them could be. At the moment, nothing comes to mind, but I know that there's several procedures that ISD does or DPW might do that don't go through the city council. It's just rules. So I'm wondering if this section pertains to that or if it's something completely different.
Mr. Chairman, I'm guessing one of the things you're probably thinking of is Board of Health bylaws, for example. Is that what you're thinking?
So that's one of them. But it's so. I think that there are a lot of not just boards, but a lot of the departments have certain procedures in place. I'm wondering if those procedures fall in line with this rules and regulations, or if these rules and regulations is just something different. Maybe it is just the boards and not the departments. because and the reason for that is potentially maybe this is too strict, or maybe it's not, and we should make sure that that they're following this. All right,
Are you
moving
looking
on
for a
10.
copy? I'm sorry, hold on. Are you looking for a copy of those rules and regulations?
No, so I'm looking for for advice from the city attorney as to what are rules and regulations, and to define where it says city agencies, what would be the city agencies? Would it be the departments? Like just the boards and committees. 10.5 reenactment and publication of ordinances. The city council shall at 10-year intervals cause to be prepared a proposed revision and recodification of all city ordinances, which shall be submitted to the city council for reenactment. The city council shall adopt the proposed revision or recodification with or without amendments prior to the expiration of the calendar year in which it is submitted to them. Such revisions or recodifications shall be prepared under the direction of the city attorney, or if the city attorney so directs, by special counsel retained for that purpose. Copies of the revised or recodified ordinances shall be made available for distribution, provided, however, that a charge not to exceed the actual cost per copy of reproduction may be charged. In each year between such reenactments, an annual supplement shall be published, which shall contain all ordinances and amendments to ordinances adopted in the preceding year. Is that sound self-explanatory? Are there any changes? Councilor Plant?
This is my third charter review, Mr. Chairman. If we ever do this, that'll be the first time we do this, because we never, after the charter review, after the year ends in 0, we've never ever recodified all of our ordinances. It's never happened. So it's one of those questions. The Republic, the city has still maintained, it's still functioned without this provision being enforced. Is it truly necessary for us to do this? And it seems so outdated. This was written in 1983. I mean, back in the day when there was an actual, I mean, no offense to anybody who gets the Eagle Tribune, but there was a time when the subscription was far bigger than what it is today. And to continue to rely on that place as the fulcrum of information, I read the newspaper. I get it. I am informed by it. There's nothing against the Tribune, but it's just not as widespread. And yet, not only on this one, but throughout this charter, we rely on it for getting stuff out. So anyway, it's just, so my question, I guess, is, do we really need this? I mean, in principle, it sounds great. We should be reviewing all our laws, and every 10 years, we should pass them all over again. Well, very few of us hang around during 2011 and come back in 2021 and start thinking about the laws we discussed back 10 years prior. It's kind of infrequent. So anyway, it's just a point that I wanted to, it's not often I have a chance to make a point like this, except for charter review. So I thought I'd just throw that out there now, since you asked.
Thank you.
Right.
You.
Councilor Reyes?
No, I'm just thanks Mr. LaPlante for his input. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I would say, since the chairman of the ordinance committee is here, that this should be done every 6 months. They should be, just joking. Yeah, that's a great question. I don't. I'm not even sure what the negative is. If we were to take it out, one of the things that I see, it looks like it's prepared in the direction of the city attorney. So, I wonder if the city attorney leads it and then submits it to the city council. In which case, that this should have been, one of the items that we would have put under goals and expectations of the city attorneys. But perhaps this isn't even needed. I don't know. Councilor Reyes, you worked in the ordinance committee for a while. Do you have any thoughts on this item?
No, I think I will go for what you just said. We're just going to send it up to the city attorney. If she want to put it through our city council, I think it makes more sense, but no.
Okay. So Felix, if you can make a note under this section that we are, so one, we are seeking the city attorney's advice on this as far as the need to have it there, and two, if there's a need to have the city attorney work on preparing this, potentially for next year?
This right here is what we're supposed to do, Mr. Chairman. This is a revised ordinance book. We get inserts for this book that we're supposed to put inside here. But the reality is, this thing is a dinosaur because we just go online and get the information that was once required. This is 1983. Was there even an internet back then? I mean, did we even have the ability to go ahead and be a dial-up? I mean, we have a hard, it was crazy. And so, but now this is really antiquated, and to force us to go ahead and start continuing to do this with the expense, by the way, that this costs. I mean, this is great for me. I can pull this thing out and look at it during a meeting, and sometimes it's faster. But in reality, do we really need this as opposed to doing a Boolean search on our website? So that's the question.
So what I would say, Councilor LaPlante, is that when I think of publication, even it being on the website, that's a publication. So like when I think of the word publication, I don't just think publication in the newspaper or in sort of like in that format. I'm also thinking about the online version. So like the question that I have is, if there isn't a requirement to keep to do a publication, can someone 10 years, 20 years, 30 years on the line, will people fall through with it, right? I mean, it sounds like we've been doing it, and perhaps the city clerk's been doing it not because of this, but because it's just good practice to do.
I mean, I know why the clerk laughs at me. He's like, "Do you want the inserts again this year, Councilor LaPlante?" I'm like, sure, I'll take them. But in reality is, it has very little impact, both for me and for the people that I represent. You represent. They're not going to this book. If they've got a question regarding our laws, they're going online. That's where they're going to get the information. So and your point is well taken. What does publication mean? Well, in the first page here, it talks about the municipal code, and this thing was done at the last year. It was done on 2000. This was enacted on April 6, 2010. So it was 10 years ago, right? This whole thing was put together. 2000, I'm not sure if you can see it, 2000 revised in 2009, revised in 2010. So we've gone through this, and I've been getting these things as well. But in the last 2 years, I said to the clerk, there's no sense in you giving me this stuff. I'm not using it. And we're just killing paper and spending money.
Yeah. So let's, so on that, so it sounds like an easy change. If the city attorney says that this is something good to have, then I think a change that we could do, where it says copies of the revised or recodified ordinances shall be made available for distribution, provided, et cetera. What if we just say copies of the revised or recodified ordinances shall be made available for online distribution? Right, because then they no longer, they can just say, hey, here's the link, and it's like you said, Councilor LaPlante, anyone even on their phone can just click on the link and be able to get that. All right, so Felix, so we're gonna make a change, and we're gonna say in that first paragraph of section 10.5, the last sentence, we're going to stop at, so it's going to read, copies of the revised or recodified ordinances shall be made available for online distribution, period. And then the rest of the sentences that starts with provided, however, and ends with may be charged, period, will be removed. Let me know if you got that, Felix.
Yeah, I'm writing it down. I got it.
All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, great. So let's move on to section 10.6. Uniform procedures governing multi-member bodies. Meetings. All multiple member bodies of the city, whether elected, appointed, or otherwise constituted, shall meet regularly at such times and places within the city as they may prescribe, Special meetings of any multiple member body shall be held on the call of the respective chairman or by 1/3 of the members thereof by written notice delivered in hand or to the place of business or residence of each member at least 48 hours before the time set, and which contain notice of the subjects which are to be acted upon, and no other business shall be in order. A copy of the said notice shall be posted in the city bulletin board. Special meetings of any multiple member body should also be held within 1 week following the date of the filing of a petition signed by 25 or more voters with the city clerk, and which states the purpose or purposes for which the meeting is to be called. Except as may otherwise be authorized by law, all meetings of all multiple member bodies shall be at all times be open to the public and to the press. Any comments?
Nope.
Councilor Platt?
All right, so back to 1983, and there was this thing called a bulletin board. It really still exists. It's right next to the clerk's office.
Yeah.
Who the heck is going to the bulletin board at the city hall to find out what's going on with our meetings? It
Yeah.
is so antiquated, right? So I'm just trying to keep this real. And in 2020, as opposed to 1983, and we need to grow this thing and say, where are we today? If you're a resident and you want to find out what's going on with the meetings, where are you finding it out?
The
You might go to the website, right? You're probably on Facebook, maybe, because one of us is putting something in there, and you're following a city councilor or something like that, or Twitter. And then that's the reality where people are getting this information. It's not, but I don't know. I'm rambling only because the timing makes sense to me. You got to put a certain amount of time. You just can't do it. But we fail to have a central repository of a place, a town. The clerk. If you ask Clerk Maloney, there was a point where they wanted him to put a bulletin board outside, where you would go into the front doors of City Hall, because the doors are locked, of course, after hours. But if you wanted to get some information, they were requiring him to put that. And he said, I'm not doing that. And he didn't. And we were able to somehow find a way that we didn't have a bulletin board outside City Hall. So I'm open to this up to discussion. I don't necessarily have an answer, but I do know that it's antiquated.
So, Councilor LaPlante, so are you? I'm just looking at the paragraph. Is there any way to put something like in addition to the bulletin board, like maybe so on the city bulletin board and city website?
Yeah.
Like city website. I feel like I can't recall now, but a few meetings ago, where we were dealing a lot with the publications of different things. I think we were using city website and like the city social media. I feel like we articulated that a little bit better. But essentially it was not just the bulletin board, but city website, social media. Let me see. Was there anything else? Yeah. So I think for sure we can say city website, because that shouldn't be something difficult to do. Any thoughts on that, or should we?
No, I think that's fine. What's interesting for us as a challenge is that just like the people that we replaced and succeeded had to have foresight, we're asking for the same kind of foresight. Is there going to be such a thing as a web in 10 years from now? I'm thinking yes. There's going to be something like that, right? Or 5 years from now.
Well, the fun thing, Councilor LaPlante, is if in the next 10 years there's no such thing as a website, well, guess what? 10 years from now, there's a new charter review. So they'll be looking back and they'll be like, website? These guys are old.
No, I'm fine with that. This is where we are right now, I guess, and we're not looking to make magic. So the reality is that we're a digital age and we're doing things digitally. And yet there are some people who are not digital among our citizenry. They may not own a computer. They may not, they may not, a lot of different reasons that may be obstacles to them. But the bar. I mean, we're so far now down that road.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but I think that on that, I do know that the business owners that have business with the city or with like one of the the licensing board, they go into City Hall and they do check the bulletin board. But the reason that they do that they leave their business to go do that, is because they can't find it online.
Oh.
If they're confused about something, the first thing that all of us do is we check online to see if we can find information. And if not, maybe we make a call. If it's after hours, we can't make a call. We'll walk to City Hall and see if there's something posted. So I think you bring up a very good point. And every time I see that bulletin board, sometimes I get annoyed because even though our office is right there are times that I've missed a meeting that I'm like, wow, like that they had a meeting, I didn't know that. And if it was in a local, just like the mayor posts different notices on the website, if the city clerk is able to go on and say this meeting is taking place, I think that would be very helpful for everybody. So let's add on the city bulletin board and city website.
Yeah. And that part, I really agree. Sometimes, yeah, you're right. Many things that has been going on that we're not even aware. And when the consumer or anyone can ask you a question, at least we can have some type of answer that we can give. But yes, agree.
Okay, let's move to section B, rules and journal. Each multiple member body shall determine its own rules and order of business, unless otherwise provided by law or by the charter, and shall provide for keeping a journal of its proceedings. These rules and journals shall be a public record, kept available in a place convenient to the public, and a certified copy shall be kept available in the office of the city clerk. I had not read this before, and I don't think that this is a section that is really followed by the other agencies. So, for example, the health board, which I was working a lot with about a year or two ago, they weren't necessarily keeping very good records of their meetings, and the ISD was keeping their records, but the city clerk didn't have a repository of that knowledge. So I think I'm not offering any changes here. I just think that this is just something administratively that should be, we should make sure is enforced. I think if I remember from my conversation with the city clerk, there was an attempt in the past, maybe it was during the Sullivan administration, where they were trying to essentially get all these different multi-member bodies to give the minutes of their meetings to the city clerk's office, and there was some pushback, and it looked like it was interdepartmental politics. But I think that it would be great if all this stuff was in one place, that online and both at the clerk's office that any resident can look at. So, but I'm not, this is just me speaking on it. I'm not asking for any changes to be made. Councilor LaPlante? You're on mute.
As you were speaking, two things came to mind. Well, one thing came to mind. We have two buildings which are far more used on off hours and are open at or even more hours than City Hall, and that's our library, specifically our library on the north side. Plus, we have some hours on the south side as well. Why we can't put our notices and things of that nature inside the community, inside the neighborhoods, where you're having maybe some more foot traffic, or in addition to, perhaps, I don't know. But those are two places that we encourage the public to go to do a variety of different things. And why not make better use of that space?
So are you potentially saying to add to 10.6A city bulletin, like library bulletin board?
I mean, we would need to talk to the library director, I think, before we were to pursue this any further. But my sense is that it's worth exploring whether or not there would be a central place. I mean, they're doing health checks over there at the library. The library is not just about pulling out books anymore. It's more than that. And maybe it's a place for information about people's government and about meetings that people have. Some of our meetings even take place there. So it's a good place that is underutilized, in my opinion. That's a place for people to get information. And so to answer your question, I would love to explore that a little bit more and see if there's some appetite to expand it.
Yeah, I like that idea. All right, moving to section C, voting. If requested by any member, any vote of a multi-member body shall be taken by a roll call, and the vote shall be recorded in the journal, provided, however, that if a vote is unanimous, only that fact needs to be recorded. Okay, that's good. All right, 10.7, notice of vacancies. Whenever a vacancy occurs or is about to occur in any city office or city employment, except for positions covered under civil service law, the appointing authority shall forthwith cause public notice of such vacancy or impending vacancy to be posted on the city bulletin board for a period not less than 10 days. Any person who desires to be considered for appointment to that said office or employment may, within 10 days following the date the notice is posted, file with the appointing authority a statement setting forth in clear and specific terms its qualifications for the position. No permanent appointment to fill a city office or employment shall be effective until at least 14 days have elapsed following such a posting, and until all persons who have filed statements shall have been considered. Councilor Plant, I see you shaking your head.
I mean, can we just go back to 1983 and Back to the Future and all the movies that, Big Hair and all that? Because this is what we're talking about. We need to get people, I love our mayors, right? I love them all. They're fantastic people. But there are times when some mayors, when they're lesser angels, can just sink something through the council and try to sneak things through because they satisfy this provision or not satisfy this provision of the bulletin board. They need to put on the website, because that's where people do their job search. They don't walk to City Hall to see if there's any jobs opening. They go to they do a Google search for jobs, and that's where they do it. That's where the requirement is, and they need to post it there, wherever it is. It used to be, was it monster.com, whatever? I don't even know if there's a centralized private job place, but there needs to be, and I think the city's doing it, by the way. I just think we need to require it to happen.
Yeah, so it's I would agree, Councilor Plant. I think the city does it for some positions. It doesn't do it for other positions. I mean, there are some positions where I like the person who's there, but they've been interim for 3-something years, right? And that I would say bothers me when the right process doesn't go through, even if I like that individual. So I think that. Yeah, I just wonder what language we could put down that would bring that sentiment, and it won't be too restrictive. Because yeah, city bulletin board, that doesn't cut it. No one's going to city bulletin board and looking for jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say city website, but I feel like it really depends where they put it on the city website. If it's not a clear jobs or something like that, careers for City Hall, and it's just placed somewhere randomly, then it defeats the purpose. But if we don't have any language, let's make a statement so we can ask the city attorney if she could draft language. So let me just make a comment here for myself. So essentially what we want to do is ensure that residents have the opportunity to see these vacancies. hopefully online.
We can work. I think that's a starting point. We need to work. Yes. I agree.
Is there a question? Is 10 days enough?
10 days is enough. Yeah.
Fine. Councilor LaPlante, you mentioned you had a comment on potentially having these job postings in like Indeed. What do we call those types of websites?
I don't know, job marketing, job hunting websites. I've been out of the job market for a while, thankfully. So I don't know. But my sense is that maybe we don't. If it's done properly at the city website, if you are an individual who's looking for a job in the city of Lawrence and you know that you can go down to the city's website, I think that should satisfy. I don't think we need to pay a fee or someplace else to put it in Monster.com, whatever the new job placement is.
Yeah, I would say I think it might be like Indeed for like nonprofit. Like sometimes it's free, but I see what you're saying. But regardless, I put it down there just so that the city attorney sort of understands the scope of the conversation.
One of the things that we do, one of the things I would just put on your radar screen, Mr. Chairman, is that sometimes we put things to MMA. So if you're a job seeker and you're looking for a municipal job, sometimes you'll go to MMA's website to see what communities have job postings. I'm not sure and we as a city have done that several times for those hard to get positions where there's a certain technical aspect that it's hard to find in the typical job search. And so we go there. But we should avail ourselves of that. I'm not sure we need to have a requirement for that, but it's as part of our conversation, we should just be acknowledged that is there and that it can be used for free.
But that have to be out of our city website, right?
It shouldn't substitute for the city's website. City's website should be the primary place to get the jobs, all of this stuff, I think.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that, because we say city website, and if I'm a sneaky guy and I just want to like hide something in there, like I can literally just hide it in some hard to reach place. And if Councilor LaPlante comes to me, Mayor, why didn't you put this up? I could be like, oh, you didn't look at, hyperlink, blah blah blah. It's there on the website, and I would be fulfilling it, what the law is asking for. I think that when we're talking about putting it on the website, what we're looking at is that you go to cityoflawrence.com and there's a tab that says careers, and you click on careers and all those job postings would be there.
Yeah.
So hopefully the city attorney can help us draft some language that would make it clear what the expectations would be. All right, so I am skipping 10.8. 10.9, limitation on office holding. No person shall simultaneously hold more than one elected city office, or if an employee of the city holds any elected city office. Does that make sense?
So say it again. I couldn't.
So no person shall simultaneously hold more than one elective city office, or if an employee of the city holds any elective city office. So I cannot be a member of the school committee and city council, but it sounds like potentially I could be a member of the city council and planning or something, unless our ordinances says differently.
Well,
So there might be, so Councilor LaPlante was shaking his head. So there might be other ordinances that say like certain things can't happen, but as far as this, it says no person shall simultaneously hold more than one elective city office. So if it's not elective, you can hold more than one. Or if an employee of the city, you can't hold any elected city office.
If you are employee of the city, you can get any elected.
You can't, if you're an employee, you can't do elected. But
Okay,
you can serve potentially, so unless our ordinances say otherwise, it sounds like the charter would allow, let's say I'm a teacher and somebody wants to appoint me to, for some reason, planning is the only thing that's coming to mind, but they want to appoint me to the cultural committee or Friends of the Library, right? Unless there's like they have a rule there that says you can't do that, it sounds like this would allow you to do it.
yeah, but the problem that I have with that is having two positions pay, that wouldn't make sense because you are getting paid twice for the same city. But if you are serving one and you don't get paid for the second one, which I believe Councilor LaPlante, I don't know if you were city council back when we were LRA members. So you were a city council back then?
I purposely went and stepped down from the LRA at that time because in appearance of the conflict, I didn't want to have. There was some questions regarding whether or not we could do it, right? But I just chose not to do that because I thought.
Yeah, but
person,
we wouldn't get paid. We wouldn't get him paid.
correct.
That.
That's right. No
So,
pay.
I don't see the reason why, because what I'm seeing now is many people want to serve, but the fact that they have any other position in the city, they can't. But I think that we should change is if you don't get paid for the second one and you want to volunteer, I think that we can do that because we have the experience. Just use ourselves in that case. We have the experience to go and work with any committee, any board, and we can serve as long as we don't get paid.
That's what plan.
Yeah. So I hear what you're saying, and it makes sense to me, and yet I'm torn. So there are some official city positions there. I mean, the chairman here has mentioned in the planning, cultural, Friends of the Library, ordinance, zoning board, board of health. The list goes on and on. Airport board, right? It just goes on and on. So the question is, are you suggesting that you could serve on the airport board commission and also be a Friends of the Library and also serve on the board of health? Let's say that all those aren't paying. Because that's important, right? Let's say all those aren't paying. Are you saying that would be okay?
Well, that I think so. I mean, if you're willing to be volunteer and donate your time, you're not getting paid, because I think the conflict is not being served in two or more. Is that you are getting paid twice, for the same city. I think that is the problem, because Councilor Payano has mentioned that he couldn't be school committee and city council at the same time, but we have nothing to do with the school, because whenever they have something, they don't come through us. That is why they have a school committee. So what do you think about that?
So I hear what you're saying, and here's my reservations. My reservations are, I would think that in our city we would profit more if we had a variety of different people getting engaged in doing things, rather than relying on one or two or just a small number of people who are doing more than one board. I would love us to be more diverse and expand it and provide greater things. But that's a preference, I think, for me. For example, I think you would do a great job on the LRA. You would do a great job on the board of health, and you would do that. But are we doing a service so you're qualified, smart, and bring all the great things to the table? Are we doing this? Are we stopping somebody else who might have a lot to offer that opportunity because we have one person doing three different things? I would love for us to spread it out a little bit, ideally.
This is how we had it now, and I don't see many new people coming and get involved, or even worse, getting interesting to be part of that. So what I want to see is that we cannot limit it, the people or the person who wants to be serving in more than one, even though you don't get paid, because we have it open to whoever wants to apply or being appointed. But what I'm seeing is those people doesn't last the time that we really need them.
So you make a good argument. So it's a question of there. I think good arguments on both sides. So you articulated it well.
Yeah, I at the moment I'm just trying to think like of what the negative that that particular line was trying to stop. I mean, it sounds like this is just specific to just elective city office. I wonder if there's another section that talks about non-elective city office, because I don't think I think it would be difficult to be a school committee member and a city councilor. Trying to think what other elected city offices are there. School committee, city council, mayor. That's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Greater Lawrence Technical School.
Greater Lawrence. So, all right. So, Greater Lawrence Technical School. Could a Greater Lawrence Technical School member also, because like both school committee and Greater Lawrence Technical School are not paid, could they also be a city council member or a mayor? So Mayor
is committee.
Gonzalez is the new mayor, and he's also got elected to be on the board of the vocational school. Is that okay? I don't know. Because I mean, I see what Councilor Reyes is saying. Like, I see both sides here. Like, on one side, it's not getting paid, so where's the conflict? But then on the other side, that's essentially a voice that's for a regular resident to take on.
Okay.
Is there potential language that we can at least put forward to get advice from council?
Can we serve two committee at the same time? If we only get paid to one, through one.
All right, so with this language in place, can we serve up to, can we serve more than one committee?
Yeah.
If we are only getting paid for one,
Yeah.
and that other committee is a non-elective
Yeah.
committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Let me copy this and I'm gonna send it. Felix, I'm posting it on the chat so that way you could have that for your notes. All right, so I know it's getting late. We have one more section to go, and I think that this is it, from when I read it last. It seemed boilerplate, so please bear with me. 11.1, continuation of existing laws. All ordinances, rules, regulations, and resolutions of the city, which are in force at the time the charter is adopted, not inconsistent with the charter, shall remain in effect and shall continue in force until amended, revised, or repealed in the manner provided by law or the charter. Sounds good?
Mm-hmm.
11.2, continuation of government. All city agencies shall continue to perform their duties until reappointed, reelected, or until the successors of the respective duties are duly appointed, elected, or their duties has been transferred and assumed by another city agency. Is that clear?
Mm-hmm.
Continuation of administrative personnel. Any person holding a city office or position in the administrative service of the city, or any person holding full-time employment of the city, shall retain such office or position or employment and shall continue to perform his duties until provision shall have been made for the performance of those duties by another person or agency, provided, however, that no person in the permanent full-time service of the city shall forfeit his pay grade or time in service. All such persons shall be retained in a capacity as similar to their former capacity as is practicable, and any reductions in the personnel needs of the city shall be accomplished through attrition unless specific provision is otherwise made in this article. Thumbs up. Okay. 11.4.
Mr. Chairman, I think most of this stuff is actually, because we have so many union positions in the city, this is affecting so few people. This is usually governed by the union contracts.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Mhm.
11.4, transfer of records and property. All records, property, and equipment whatsoever of any city agency or part thereof, the powers and duties of which are transferred or assigned to another city agency shall be transferred forthwith to the city agency to which such powers and duties are transferred and assigned. Moving to 11.5, effect on obligations, taxes, etc. All official bonds, reconnaissance, obligations, contracts, and other instruments entered into or executed by or to the city before the adoption of the charter, and all taxes, assessments, fines, penalties, forfeitures incurred or imposed due or owing to the city shall be enforced and collected, and all writs, prosecutions, actions, and causes of actions, except as herein otherwise provided, shall continue without statement and remain unaffected by the charter, and no legal act done by or in favor of the city shall be rendered invalid by the adoption of the charter. To me, it makes sense. Okay, thumbs up. Great. 11.6, disposition of special laws. Certain acts are repealed, and then it gives us a chart of all the laws that are repealed. And B is similar. It's saying that certain acts are specifically recognized, and then it has all those acts, and certain acts are obsolete. Okay, and it looks like, you know, more obsolete laws, certain things repealed. You know what I'll say is, I mean, I think that the rest of that particular section looks fine. So I'm going to move to 11.7.
Mm-hmm.
Time of taking effect. This charter shall become fully effective. Hold on. Let me accept the extension is made by the following schedule. All right. So this is just the time that the charter will be taking effect. So this part we can skip because this has already happened. Yeah, which is funny. A city of election for the purpose of electing a mayor, a city council, a school committee shall be held on the first Tuesday following the first Monday in November of the year 1985. Hopefully that occurred.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna skip all that, and it's charter compatible table. We don't need that, and I think we're done.
Okay.
Okay, Councilor Plant, go ahead.
Yeah, I think if you had a chance to talk to the mayor, he has some concerns or reservations or about the timing of the swearing-in ceremony. So
Councilor Plant, so that would be, so the language that's here about the swearing-in ceremony is, I believe, is respective to what happened in 1985.
Mm-hmm.
So if we wanted to talk about language about swearing-in ceremony from here on, it would be at the top of the charter. But what was his? Because I know that there's and you know, Felix, I think you're the one that was doing those minutes from the get-go. So I'm very, very grateful for you know, that you're very specific as to the comments that we're making. So I think that's amazing. But I remember in those first minutes, there's a discussion that we had about inauguration, and I can't recall exactly, but I think Councilor Plant, you might have brought up a point that we all agreed to, and we ended up changing it slightly. I don't know if you remember.
Is this for Felix or for me?
Say it again. I'm sorry.
Who's the question for, Felix or for me?
For you.
Oh, now that you're mentioning it, I do think we tackled it because I as I was saying this a few minutes ago, I do recall that I was saying this again like 3 months ago or so that the mayor wanted this. Is that why that's in my head is beyond me, but yeah, I think we tackled it. And he'll have it. Frankly, he'll have a chance to bite the apple again for Chairwoman Reyes's committee anyway if he's got a more solid view on it.
Yeah, no, I think I vaguely remember this because I think it was back in like March. So I understand why you might not remember. So, but I think all right. So one, I want to thank Giovanni's not here, but I want to thank all three of you guys for we've just gone through everything. I think this was very, very time intensive. I know that we are waiting for some comments from the city attorney. Who will be with us next Thursday. I want to make sure that all of you put Thursday's meeting on your calendar. If you're unable to make it, let me know. Because I think if we know ahead of time, we might be able to get, if we're missing quorum, President Vasquez would be able to step in. So the way that we're seeing this right now is you're going to be getting on Monday all the minutes of the charter committee, along with the charter with the changes that we have so far, sort of like there's been consensus on, right? And on Thursday, we'll have what hopefully will be our final discussion. But if it isn't our final discussion, then we would just have to schedule another meeting with a very short time frame because the next step after my conversation with President Vasquez would be to send it to the ordinance committee, and he believes that the ordinance committee it would be a procedural type of thing, and they would send it straight to the full council. So that's sort of where we're at. Any questions with sort of next steps? Make sense? All right, perfect. All right, so I mean that's all we have. Is there a motion to table this item?
So move.
Second.
All right, motion's been tabled and seconded. All those in favor, Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor LaPlante,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez, noted, and the chair votes in the affirmative. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, Councilor Reyes,
Yes.
Councilor LaPlante,
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez, noted, and the chair votes in affirmative. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.